Hello and welcome to another episode of SW's Property Matters podcast. Today I'm joined by two members of our exec board, David Rastrick and Ian Vivian. It'd be great if you could both introduce yourselves and a bit about your roles at SW. So David, over to you.
Hello there. Yes, my name is David Rastrick. I'm COO of Sanderson Weatherall. Been with the company for over 26 years. Prior to my current role, I headed up landlord and tenant department or lease consultancy, where we advised on lease re-gears, restructuring, and all sorts of compliance advice to do with large commercial properties across the country. Also chair the exec board. And that's what I'm doing at the moment. Thank you.
And thanks for that, David. And then over to you, Ian.
Thanks, Dan. Yes, Ian Vivian, head of London-based valuations team. I've been with the firm for almost 7 years now, and currently sit on the exec board. I've been on the exec for about 18 months. The work we're involved with in terms of valuations ranges between asset valuations for local authorities and secured lending for some of our leading lending clients.
Right, thank you very much. So for this podcast, we are going to try and focus on a bit of market outlook and sort of future opportunities for the company, but we felt we couldn't really go without a mention of the past year. It's not been easy, but it's great to see SW coming out quite strongly the other side of it. Just wondered, I guess, how have you found it both personally and within a business context?
Yeah, it's been a different year, to say the least. I think both Ian and I and the rest of the exec board have found it quite challenging. I mean, no one's written a rule book on how to deal with a global pandemic and lockdowns and putting people on furlough, etc., etc. But you know, the staff have been fantastic. We've got through it. Everyone's pulled together. Everyone's coped with the challenges. We could have asked for more. You know, we've learned a lot through the process as well. I think what we've learned about our staff, the way they can cope, the way we can maybe work a bit better and smarter going forward over the next, period, are all going to be things that we will take forward and put SW even in a stronger position than we found ourselves at the end of this financial year.
Yeah, I'd certainly echo what David said. I mean, no one could have anticipated what we faced. And I think for someone that only fairly recently joined the exec to then be faced with literally a tidal wave of issues, challenges, decisions that needed to be made almost on a daily basis, it was quite a steep learning curve for me. But I thought the business, as David was saying, responded tremendously well. I think not just the people that were retained in the business, but actually those that were furloughed as well, and the sort of attitude and just reactions of people that could understand the pressures and the challenges that we were facing, and had patience and trust in knowing that we were going to sort of pull through it. And so it sort of feels like we're coming out the other side now, gents, doesn't it?
It does. I think it shows the strength of culture we've got in the business, the way people adapted and felt as part of a team, part of a wider group of people all pulling together to help one another. I think that was fantastic to see, and you know, that's part of what we stand for as an SME and a business of our size is that that togetherness, and I think that's really put us in a strong position and helped through this tough period.
And I think actually to that point, David, it was demonstrated very well with our admin staff, and the way that people just really just rolled the sleeves up, got stuck in. And I'm not going to name any names, but there were some certainly standout people for me, and because we were absent of HENA at that time, and we had to draw on people that we'd never met and we didn't know anything about, but they were more than happy and willing to help us. So all credit to those admin.
That's really good. I think, David, you said there's been a lot of tough decisions, and no one across any industry or any business, there wasn't a rule book that you could pull out that says this is what you do now and this is how you deal with this. It was new for everyone, both as a business and personally as well. I guess it wasn't just you had to deal with the business. I don't know, did either of you have to homeschool during this as well? I know that created its own issues.
I didn't have to. Well, yes, I do have one that I had to sort of deal with homeschool. She's old enough to actually fend for herself a little bit. I had two elder two are at university, and one of them got COVID while he was there. The other one managed to dodge it, I think. But they found it pretty tricky. I mean, it's been hard for students and younger people alike, I think, to cope during the lockdown period. And I've got people who are highly vulnerable in the family as well, so they had that added risk of always in the back of your mind, whatever you had to do, you needed to think of protecting others, which is what we've instilled in all the staff as well. It's not just looking after the staff, but it's looking after our clients who are meeting them or whatever else. The risks we face of meeting people could spread the virus was something that we took incredibly seriously, and ensured that we followed all the government advice over that period to ensure that everyone was protected, because we have people of all ages across the firm, with underlying health issues as well, that we needed to make sure we protected.
I wasn't too caught up in the homeschooling. My wife did the heavy lifting on that. Which I'm very grateful for, and she keeps reminding me of. But I've got a 6-year-old and 8-year-old, and they, as I say to my wife, my little 6-year-old, she's got the face of an angel, but the temperament of a cage fighter. She'll try to gouge your brother's eyes out at the earliest opportunity, and trying to police those two in a lockdown situation, it's incredibly difficult. And it's not just. I mean, a lot of families in this firm were equally impacted, and I think that just shouts even further, doesn't it, in terms of the commitment that people were making into the firm. And
absolutely. Yeah, I mean, as you say, there's a number of staff across the piece in a similar position to Ian in terms of younger ones, where it's to keep children entertained and focused on trying to do their homework and sitting on laptops and avoiding playing on Xboxes. It has been incredibly challenging, and I'm well aware of that from some of the conversations I've had around the offices during the period via Teams and stuff. So everyone's done phenomenally well to cope. We all accept that it's been difficult and challenging.
Yeah, that's great. You obviously spoke about keeping staff and their families safe. We made the decision to close SW offices probably about a year ago now, which time has really flown by. But Ian, I guess you're based in London. It was even more important for you maybe than some of the other regional offices because of how everyone gets into work and because of being such a densely populated city. How did you find that, sort of getting that with staff, and how did they cope to that, really?
Well, I think, I mean, we it's interesting, actually. It's an interesting point, because when the pandemic first hit, I think down in the south we felt the impact of it before you guys in the northern regions, and I remember having conversations on exec where it was like, guys, this is really happening. There's people wearing masks on tube trains, and we're just going about our business here, but something feels like we're on a tipping point here. Something's going to happen. And the mood music coming out from exec was, no, I think we're all right here. I think things are going to be all right. We're looking at the headlines, we're looking at the government advice, but we're going to be guided by that. So I think there was a nervousness in London that stepped us into the sort of lockdown situation. I think people were possibly more accepting of the situation because of that sort of lead into it. And we the cases were, there's various local cases that we're aware of. So generally, people have responded well. And I think it's fair to say that the working from home isn't shirking from home. People are putting in long hours, and actually that time that would have been spent on the commute is now sort of invested into work. And the other thing about home working is there's the blurred boundary between home and work, isn't there? So as David was saying just earlier, it's 7 o'clock at night, you think, oh, I've got a few emails to sort out and a few bits and bobs. Whereas if you're going into the office, you'd probably separate your office and work life, your office and home life far more easily than you do when you work from home. But no, it's been well accepted. Good response from everyone in London. No major issues. We do have heavy reliance on public transport, which has always been there as an added risk and threat to people that work in London. But yeah, we're again, I feel that we're starting to come out of this now, aren't we? And we're starting to see a light at the end of the tunnel. I get my vaccination soon as well, so I'm quite excited about that. But yeah.
That's good. I think, as you say, we are coming out of it, and hopefully in the coming months we'll see even more changes than we are at the moment. But do you think, you've spoke about working from home and I guess the increased reliance on things like Teams, do you think there are ways that we've learned to work over the previous year that will maybe carry forward both as a business, but also, I guess, just nationally? Do you think that's changed in any ways, David? Are there sort of things that you've learned to do that you'd quite like to keep going?
Certainly, I think the acceptance of meetings via Teams, the way that's ballooned and got, it's improved over the 12 months we've been there from what it was able to do to what it now can do is phenomenal. And I think the acceptance that clients, more importantly, are happy to use it and see it as a very beneficial tool as well. I think that's a game changer, really. I think clients accept it saves them time, it saves us time from commuting and spending hours in cars going from place to place. I'm not saying it's the be all and end all. I still think face-to-face meetings and meeting people is very important, particularly in our industry. We are a people business at the end of the day, but it is clearly an efficient way of having meetings. If you have regular update meetings with clients, it's a nice way of doing it, a way of doing it in a fairly quick and efficient way, and I think that's here to stay. And I think everyone accepts it more and more as we go along. So that's a definite. Working from home and flexibility, I think as a business, we've always had an element of that, because as a business we're not like lawyers or accountants that are quite desk bound. We tend to be out of the office because we have to be, because we go out seeing property all the time, and we're out inspecting things, valuing things, looking at things, selling things. So we're not always chained to the desk. So I mean, it's never been the case that everyone's expected in the office. I think there will be some flexibility around that. I think there is a willingness by staff, speaking to them already, that people want to get back in the office and don't want to just sit at home. I think there's a welfare piece around that, staff welfare piece, that people want that interaction and social interaction with the colleagues on a regular basis. But equally, there'll be a balance to be struck about, particularly in London, where the commute, as Ian's touched on, can be a major part of your day. Some people spending up to 2 hours a day going in and out of London.
Yeah.
If you can avoid that and work more efficiently, then that's got to be considered and looked at as well. So there's a balance, but we'll be led by the way things roll out and come out. I mean, equally, you don't want everyone working at home and the cities around the country to die. That's the last thing. We want to get people back into cities and help them recover as much as anything else as well.
That's great. You touched on a bit at the start there, sort of client meetings and going out and meeting with clients. We, as a firm across the country, work with a range of clients, from big to small to nationals to locals. A bit of a salesy question, but why do you think they work with us? What do you view as our USPs as two members of the exec board? Over to you guys, I guess. What are our USPs as a business?
Well, I'll start.
You start, David. I'll try and fill in the blanks.
Right, good idea. So the USP, well, I mean, I think we've positioned ourselves as I suppose, one of the largest independently owned SME firms. That's how we've positioned ourselves over the last few years, and we're proud of that fact. And I think that's born. Well, it's helped us to no end in this global pandemic we've just been through. We can react quickly. We're independent, so we can make decisions very quickly. The exec board can do things. We've got buy-in from people because they feel part of the company. They feel they've got some empowerment in the company. They feel they've got some involvement in the company. And I think that's what an SME brings, a privately owned SME brings to staff and to the employees. We all feel an element of ownership of the business, and therefore are bought into the decisions and everything we do. And I think that again, that SME model, I think we're big enough to deal with the biggest clients and that you can expect. We're on all the major bank panels. We're on all the major public sector panels that you'd want to be on. But equally, we deal with the corner shop money as well. We cover all those bases, and we generally, you know, try and give a first-class service to whoever we have as a client. I mean, what do you think, Ian? I'm over to you on that.
Yeah, I'd second what you just said. I think the impression that I get from so just looking through a London lens, we obviously compete in a very aggressive, competitive market in London. I think that's less the case for some of our regional offices, which have had, you know, the benefit of, or hold the benefit of, a very well established, mature position in their local markets. So what we're trying to do all the time is almost impress upon clients the quality of the service that we deliver, and I think we do that well. And I think the other important part of it is that we competitively price. And I've never wanted to race to the bottom in terms of fees. I think if you do that, you end up as a bottom feeder, and it doesn't lead you to a good place. So what we've tried to do is make a really good starting impression with clients, competitively price our services, offer the expertise and partner-led solutions to the work that they're needing, the services they're needing, and the response has been really strong and really good, to the point where it's just accelerated our growth and just reinforced that is the right approach. And actually, I might be saying something out of turn here, but the approachable alternative, which was the strap line of that was presented, I think, a couple of years ago. I initially looked at that and I thought, not sure I like the taste of that, but actually it is very true. We are an approachable alternative. We are a firm that have the capacity, the expertise, and the national spread and resource to deliver on some very significant contracts. You know, the feedback from clients is very strong to that point, and maybe that strapline does hold some truth.
I think that's certainly one of those marketing lines that maybe people think.
I'm cheap because I'm speaking to the marketing guy and the COO who probably dreamt it up in the first place. So
I think maybe we've got those straplines on our website, the approachable alternative, and big enough to deliver but small enough to care. And I'm sure they've raised a few eyebrows of people thinking how cheesy they are, but I really think it's something that we do as a business embody, and as surveyors and as individuals we embody. And interesting hearing you talk, as much as sort of I led you into quite a salesy question, I guess, from the client's point of view. I think all those things are also true for why people want to work here, because we offer that flexibility, we offer that empowerment, as you mentioned, David, from a graduate level all the way up to partner level. There's that real opportunity to get involved and to make a difference and to work directly with a range of clients. So yeah, that's perhaps sales question over, and we can go back to something else though. I think we spoke about this a little bit before we started recording, and it's maybe putting you both on the spot, but over the past year there's been a number of changes, but it's perhaps just accelerated things that we already noticed in our markets. Are there any sort of particular property sectors that you'd highlight, whether it's internally as SW opportunities, but also I guess externally, that you see as fastest growing, or perhaps highlight some that are maybe struggling? It's quite open, I guess, but Ian, over to you if you've got any thoughts.
In terms of property sectors, I mean, we're in a very interesting time, aren't we? So we're coming out of a pandemic, which we know is going to disrupt a number of property markets. I suppose the obvious sort of standout ones are the high street retail and offices. I think we're looking at some substantial change in those sectors, and I suppose as a business we need to respond in understanding how we best place our business into the opportunities that will fall out of that change. Equally, on the flip side, the industrial market's literally gone from strength to strength. There's been a weight of cash following that market for 5 to 10 years. It's attracted a lot of institutional investment, but actually it's now sort of seen as a bit of a mainstay for a number of retailers who are sort of changing their trading platforms. So you know, the landscape of the commercial property world is changing quite radically, and I think that's been accelerated by the pandemic. I mean, I just seen the crash of these big department stores. and this emergence of this online retail giant Amazon, which has literally gone from strength to strength and only accelerated its growth through the pandemic, makes you realise that the old norm is just never going to return. So yeah, I mean, we're against that change. There's going to be some distress and business failure, and we've got, I think, the UK's second largest receivership team ready and poised to pick up likely some quite significant and substantial work over the next probably 3 to 5 years, I suspect. No one wishes the economy to tank, but I think as a business we're well poised and positioned to respond well to the challenges that lie ahead. And we've actually, if you look across the firm and how we are set out as service disciplines, we're not. We don't seem that vulnerable to what lies ahead, or less vulnerable than perhaps some of the other sort of bigger competition that we're up against. Agency's difficult, has been for a little while, but we know that the truth of the market is that people transact, and there's always going to be a platform for agency. I think that one area that really interests me is planning consultancy and development consultancy. I genuinely feel that there's an opportunity there as a firm that we could go for. Maybe we have to think more strategically about how we approach that. But and of course, partnered into that is the architectural services. So we've got the skeleton there as something that could build and thrive off a lot of change of use and the sort of changing landscape. But yeah, David, you probably got it.
No, I agree with you. I think as a company we've always been a very professionally based firm and not overly reliant on agency, and I think a lot of bigger firms have been very reliant on massive agency deals, and I think that's why we've probably weathered reasonably well, because we cover a lot of bases and we are very much professional based and focused. Another area I see as an area of growth and an opportunity is obviously public sector and infrastructure, with what the government are saying in terms of road building and building our way out of things. And again, we've got a very good and growing public sector team, people that deal with CPO and those areas as well. And we're seeing that those areas, I think, will go from strength to strength, I hope, over the next couple of years, in line with, as Ian's touched on, our advisory and recoveries team. You have to listen to Melvin King, the former Bank of England, who's saying that a lot of these zombie companies have to, go, unfortunately, but opportunities will arise out of the back of that for other companies. And that's the same with the property world. It's always, there's always a new opportunity will present itself as something else goes, something else gets reinvested, rebuilt, redesigned, repurposed. And I think that's what we'll see in the property industry, and there'll be always opportunities there. As we come out of this global pandemic and move forward, I think I'm very optimistic about where we will go and where the UK economy will go over the next 2 and 3 years. Now, let's hope we do have that revival that people keep talking about.
Yeah. I think we just finished. It was finishing on a bit of a tough one, but I think you've rounded it off in that quite nicely. But just where sort of short, medium term over the next 5 to 10 years, where do you see SW going? Have you got ambitions? Have you got growth plans?
Yeah, we do. I mean, we set ourselves a 3 to 5 year plan back in 2017. We were, our short-term goal was to get to about 17 million. Well, we've achieved that. Our next objective is to get to north of 20 million, and that's where we're focusing on and what we want to see happen. And that will primarily be as a result of investment and growth in the southern offices. We're still very strong and always perceived as very strong in the north. We want to keep addressing that. That's why we have invested over the years into growing our presence around the country. We've now got 9 offices around the country, and we want to see that grow and the staffing numbers increase in the south. And we see that as where the drive and the drive of turnover and profit will come from. And that's what we want to see happen, whilst at the same time maintaining our client base and our client share, our market share, should I say, in the north of the country. So that's where I see it, the business going, and has continued to encourage the staff to buy into the business, invest in the business, and themselves develop and take the opportunities that will present themselves as we grow as a company going forward. That's what we want to see happen.
Yeah. Do you have anything to add there, Ian, or has he?
I couldn't have said that better myself. One thing, I mean, I would say that, we're a people business, so it's absolutely essential that we get the people piece right, and that's retaining staff, and nurturing talent and skilled staff, and making sure that we take the right recruitment opportunities that the market will present, because I think, with the distress that is likely to come to bear on firms, there's going to be some possible restructuring with some of our competition that aren't as well placed as we are in terms of what lies ahead. And I'm thinking probably specifically for maybe smaller practices that won't be able to bear the strain of losing maybe one or two clients.
Or PII risks and that.
Yeah, no, exactly. So there's real cost pressure now on some of these small guys, and we know, that they're already backing out of the valuation market, which again just bolsters our position in terms of valuation as a discipline. But there's going to be some possible acquisition opportunities. There's going to be the potential for some recruitment across the not just smaller practices, similar size practices and larger practices. So we need to be alive and alert to that, particularly in the offices that we want to grow. I think the growth stories are great and they're exciting, but unless it's sustainable, growth isn't worth pursuing in my mind. I think we need to be looking at sustainable positions of growth, and we almost have to go back to first principles, which is we need skilled personnel expertise into markets that we can grow. We need to be winning clients on the strength and the quality of the work that we can deliver. We need to be competitively priced, and we need to retain and maintain our culture and our sort of almost belief ethos about who we are and our identity, and not let any of that erode away with the remote working position and the but actually I think the partner model, the shareholding partner model, and the SME is it's almost a dying breed in this market. We've seen many of our competition in earlier years just be swallowed up by bigger corporates, and it's almost like there's a flight of people back into firms like ours, where that they want that inclusive culture that we hold, and we hold dear, because I think that's
have some empowerment and some an ability to set their own path and deliver on it, I think, and have some rather than the feeling of, I don't know, it's just just being part of a very small cog in a very big machine at the end of the day.
Indeed. I mean, I get quite vocal on exec sometimes, because I think that one of the failings of SMEs is that we preoccupy ourselves with short-term cost, and that to the detriment of pursuing a growth opportunity or really realizing our full potential. And I think we, as an exec, need to be stepping forward in what could be a challenging market, but not a market full of opportunity, with the mindset of, actually, let's be brave about this, and let's think, is this sustainable? Could we start something new in one of the target offices to really push forward and make a massive change in 5-10 years time? And if we think we can see those markers there, we should go for it.
Yeah.
And I'm not being cavalier or bullish. I just think the market will present us some great opportunities. If we get it right in the next couple of years, we could really set ourselves on a great course for the next 10 years. So I'm looking at David. David's quite sort of lips are pursed, thinking, what's he saying? If only I could kick him under the table.
Not at all. No, I think you're absolutely right. I think we've just got to identify the right people, the right fits for our organisation. And there's plenty out there, as you've touched on, that want to come back to a business like ours, that enjoy working, enjoy the relationship, enjoy feeling part of a team and part of a business that's going in a direction they believe in, and can set the destiny of that business going forward. And I think, there are people out there, and we're getting approaches all the time from people that want that experience, and and that's what we've got to be open to over the next 3 to 4 years, of people like that.
Yeah.
Take those opportunities on.
Dan, you meant we did a SWOT analysis recently for London, and it was really quite insightful. And I remember one of the things that I remember from that session was that you said, "Oh, we've run these sessions across a number of other offices, and one of the strengths of this business is our London office."
Yeah.
And that was almost, well, I mean, maybe you want to just highlight it, because it was said almost consistently across all the offices. Is that right?
I think that was, obviously, as you've touched on, we're a northern-based practice in roots back to the 1830s, but I think certainly looking at the regional offices, a lot of them, when speaking to them, the strength, and when they're speaking to clients locally, it's a massive selling point that we've got the London office, whether that's a perception that you're a bigger practice, or that you can do it all, or that you can service the clients that often are headquartered from London. I don't know. But it was a real consistent sort of selling point of the firm, I guess, to clients both locally and nationally.
Which is great. We have a broad awareness across the business that London is a good opportunity for the national firm, and equally that was one of the things that attracted me to the business, was that I could see the national scale of what we were doing, but a light touch in London.
Yeah.
And it would really be great if we could get more momentum into growing London, getting the right hires, but doing it carefully and very well considered. There's I think the firm's got a great opportunity.
And I think the same's to be said of Birmingham. I mean, the Birmingham as a city is just going ballistic at the moment, and there's got to be opportunities there to grow and expand that office for us all. I'm going to have to dip off because I've now got to go on to a Newcastle.
I'm going to say, we often finish on some quick fire questions, but we'll skip them. But it just means you've both got to come back and we can quiz you on those another time.
Right.
I thought that was great. So thank you very much.
All right.
Cheers, Dan.
Cheers.